Hi, I'm your Senator Chuck Grassley, once again with you on my weekly webcast. Today we're holding our weekly webcast in the Senate Finance Committee room. This is the committee room where I'm senior Republican. I used to be chairman of the committee when we were in the majority. And the reason we're in this room today is I held the news conference on the introduction of a bill to reauthorize legislation that makes it possible for families to have some help adopting kids. One of the things I've learned from kids that are in foster care is that they want a permanent home, they want a mom and dad like other people their age. I'm also announcing today an expansion of that program to help guardians who are relatives to get some help on foster kids so that they can have permanency in homes that maybe they're related to the people in those homes. And this is especially important so that we can have a fewer number of people doing what we call aging out of foster care. In other words, aging out, never being adopted, and never really having a family. And in this particular program, there are a lot of relatives that maybe can't afford to adopt, but they would have permanency, and this would give those families some help. It's a little bit different this time in this hearing and this press conference because we have had 5 families from Iowa come out to speak in support of this legislation. They have told their own personal stories, and these are stories that show families are caring people, they're humanitarians, and particularly families that take kids with special needs, particularly special health care needs. These kids maybe would not be adopted if we didn't have programs to support these families. And we do it not only to be humanitarians, but because also we do it because it would be cheaper to have these kids in a home with a loving family than it would be to have them in a more expensive environment of an institution. As is the case, I always try to tell you what's going on in the Senate this week. We have the supplemental appropriation bill up on the floor of the United States Senate. And then secondly, I try to answer a couple questions each week of the dozens of questions that are emailed to us. Today I have a question from Jeff, Grimes, Iowa. Jeff asks, do you support incentives for employers to provide health care for employees? And the answer is yes, and we're working very closely with an organization called the National Federation of Independent Businesses that would represent a lot of thousands of small business people in Iowa who are supporting this legislation as well. And it generally gives tax incentives for small businesses to provide insurance, health insurance for their workers. The second question comes from Nona, Strawberry Point, Iowa, which is close to Postville, where the agri-processors company was raided last week by immigration people because of the employment of a lot of illegal aliens and because of a lot of people stealing Social Security numbers to make it look like they're legally in the country. So the question is, why do you think it will be hard to prosecute employers at agri-processors? Well, it's difficult if, in fact, they knew they were doing something illegal. It would not be difficult. But the 1986 law says that you're guilty of a crime if you knowingly, and the important word is knowingly, hire illegal aliens. But if Chuck Grassley were to come to an employer and I had a fake passport, fake birth certificate or fake Social Security number, and I presented it to a prospective employer, and he hired me based upon the presentation of a fraudulent document that looked very real, and the employing person did not know that it was fraudulent, then they would have proof under the law that they hired somebody who they didn't know was illegally in the country. So if a person hired me not knowing I was an illegally in the country, then they would not be subject to prosecution. And that happens every day, because I can tell you it's so possible to make documents that look so real that an employer wouldn't know the difference between a document and a fraudulent document. And now what we're trying to do through law that I propose is to make sure that the numbers that are checked with the Social Security are aligned with payroll information, so that we know the person that has the Social Security number is a person that can legally have that Social Security number. And with that additional information through Social Security and the IRS, we're able to keep more people from, we'll be able to keep fewer people from stealing Social Security numbers, and then more apt to be employing people who are legally in the country. Those are the two questions that have been emailed to me that we have selected to respond to through video. Those others that email letters, we'll have them answered in writing. Thank you very much for your participation. And I won't see you next week because I'm going to be in southwest Iowa holding about 15 town meetings, a little bit in southeast Iowa as well. So Tuesday through Friday next week, I will be on the road in Iowa making the process of representative government work through my town meetings. I hope if you're in those counties, you'll come to my town meetings. See you in 2 weeks when we're back in session.